Thank you very much. As Fernando said, we are in the weird twilight zone between Christmas and New Year's. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I am. I don't know what day it is. I seem to be surviving and thriving on a diet of purely pigs and blankets and cheese and chocolate, which means I've had heartburn for like 4 days solid, but it's fine. I will push through because it is tradition and I'm a rule follower. I read somewhere recently, and when I say I read something, 99% of the time that means I watched a video on Instagram. But I watched something recently that said that retailers report that they see the most returns, that is the most goods that are sent back or brought back into the shop in the days immediately following Christmas. Now I know a lot of you are sat next to loved ones, so I'm not going to ask anyone to raise hands because I'm sure you all got the perfect presents this year. But I'm sure that all of us have at some point received a gift that we would like to exchange for something better. Imagine a scenario where you could go into a shop with something that you'd like to return and you took it up to the counter and they said, yes, we'll take this back. And tell you what, we'll give you double, we'll give you triple the value of it. That would be great. Let's take it a step further. Imagine you went into a shop, let's say Curry's, and you took in an old, battered, broken laptop. It won't turn on. It's completely beyond repair. If you've seen Amy's laptop, that might give you a picture of what it is. But you take it up to the counter, and they say, yes, we'll take this back. And I tell you what, in exchange, we'll give you unlimited credit in the store. You can come and take whatever you want, whenever you want. Sounds too good to be true. And unfortunately, on this earth, it is too good to be true. But the good news is that with God, that's exactly how it is. I have amazing news with God. This is not just too good to be true, it is completely true. And in fact, He guarantees, He promises that He can take all of our damaged, broken, seemingly irreparable things and give us invaluable blessings in exchange. All we need to do is hand them over for exchange. The title of my message this morning is The Promise Spoken. We've been learning about the promises of God over this Advent season. We learned about the promise of His hope, the promise of His love, the promise of His joy. And today we are bringing together this series and learning of His promise fulfilled. The verses this morning are from Isaiah, verses 61, verses 1 to 3. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me because the Lord has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of righteousness, a planting of the Lord for the display of His splendor. This passage in Isaiah is written at a time when the people of Israel are struggling. They have returned home after a period of exile, and they've come back not to the life that they remembered or expected. Life was hard, economically, socially, and spiritually. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Isaiah was a prophet who was known for sharing warnings of God's judgment, calling God's people to holiness, justice, and trust in God. And in these passages, we see him pointing towards hope and long-term redemption. He is speaking to a people who are suffering, and he is telling them that God sees them. There have been lots of blessings this year, but for many of us, as we end this year, we are carrying some heavy things with us. I don't know what you've been through or are going through. But this morning, please know that for the poor, for the brokenhearted, for the captives, for those imprisoned by darkness, for those who mourn and grieve, for those who feel like their life is in ashes and like they are carrying a spirit of despair. God sees you. We do not serve a God who ignores our suffering. God doesn't sit up in heaven and look down at us and say, get over it. Get up, move on, come on. I've done so much for you. How can you be in despair? No. He acknowledges what we struggle with. And not only does God see our suffering, but he understands it. We celebrate the birth of Jesus at Advent. It's a time to thank God for coming down as a helpless baby. And we celebrate it because this baby, Jesus, grew up to be a man who lived a perfect life. He faced all of the same temptations that we do. But he resisted sin. Jesus faced mocking, betrayal, mourning, and attack. But he resisted. He then chose to die for our sin, taking the wrath of God on himself. On the cross, he bore every pain that you can imagine, physically, spiritually, emotionally. There is nothing you have been through that God himself has not also been through. He sees your pain and he understands your pain. And he doesn't leave us in it. Jesus didn't stay on the cross. He battled death itself and he won and rose again so that we do not have to be crushed in our suffering. Isaiah tells us that God has spoken these promises. He promises good news. He promises that broken hearts will be fixed, that we can have freedom and release from all that holds us down, that he will give us favor and comfort and provide for us, that we can have beauty and joy and praise, and that he will give us righteousness. God sees your suffering and he knows what you are going through, and he has made promises that are for you. What are you suffering with? What are you struggling with? Maybe you think it's something that's too small for God to bother with, like he's too busy dealing with the big problems to see what's worrying you. God sees you and he cares about your struggles. He has a promise of good news and favor and beauty for you. Maybe you are buried so far in darkness that you think that you are irredeemable. Maybe an addiction is holding you captive, or something in your past seems unforgivable. God sees you and he knows your struggle. He has a promise of light and freedom and righteousness for you. Maybe your heart is broken and you don't know how to fix it. You're walking in grief and mourning and despair. God sees you and he knows your struggle. He has a promise of comfort and joy and praise for you. God has invaluable things to exchange for your brokenness. His promise has been spoken and it is for you. Take your suffering to him and see how his promise is fulfilled.